Razdan, thank you very much for coming to WPC Television. You are former Power Secretary of India, former India Chair of the World Energy Council, and now a very important energy consultant. Now, energy obviously is something which is of the moment, especially in view of climate change. How do you see the evolution of the energy market in the next 5 to 10 years?
You see, energy is certainly a recognized driver for development and eradication of poverty. That is the prime focus of the developing world, at least. Now, to keep the developed world going also, energy is a very essential component. It is also a component in getting over your climatic difficulties, which you have, either very cold climates, very hot climates, to increase productivity in work. And mobility and transport, I think, is another major issue where liquid fuels come in. We in India believe, at least I personally have been putting that view across when I was Secretary Power and earlier Special Secretary Petroleum and Natural Gas in the country, that there are about 5 E's that we need for the developing world, particularly. One is we need energy, we need equity in its use, we need to protect the environment, we need enterprise, and we need efficiency.
Can all these 5 E's be combined? Or is there an implicit contradiction?
Precisely. It's going to be a balance of these. And I think at the end of the day, you've got to find something which balances all these, because governments alone cannot provide all this. We will certainly need to increase our energy use and access and availability and affordability. Now, these were the WEC's...
the World Energy Council.
Yes, that was their view also, and I think it fits in quite well, because we managed to take electricity or commercial energy, you might say, to a very large number of homes who were hitherto unconnected in the past, particularly living in villages. Almost all the villages are covered, that is, as an administrative unit, and at least 10 to 20% of the households and local offices there and establishments are covered with connections. Now we want to extend all this energy, electricity availability into hamlets also and small habitations, and I think this should also be completed in about the next 5 years or so.
I mean, this is obviously going to transform the lives of literally millions of people in India in particular, but also in China. But of course, one of the criticisms, not necessarily criticisms, one of the fears of the advanced economies is that the growing economies of China, India in particular, will be too reliant upon coal. And therefore, from a planet point of view, there'll be more CO2 emissions, there'll be more climate change, etc., etc. I mean, do you think that those who have that view are right? And if they are, what can be done about it?
You're perfectly right. It's a question of economics at the end of the day, and availability of alternate sources. We have at the moment in the country about 9,000 to 10,000 megawatts of power generating capacity which cannot come online because there is no fuel available. Gas is not available. We thought we had a great promise of gas in the KG Basin, particularly in the Bay of Bengal, but the supplies there have diminished over a period of time, with some promise that it might go up again with some additional drilling. Coal is there in India in a substantial quantity as an indigenous resource. We have a fair amount of hydropower capacity, but that again, strictly speaking, is assessed at about 125,000 megawatts. And if you were to calculate it at about 60% PLF, it comes down to about 85,000 megawatts. Out of that, we've harnessed already about 40,000, and maybe another 20,000 is under construction. We push very hard because these are very environmentally sensitive areas, some of them in the upper Himalayas, and we don't want to spoil some of those areas because construction of huge projects brings about a lot of environmental change in those areas. So I would say another 40,000 megawatts can possibly come on to the grid. But our requirement may be very soon, about 600,000 megawatts, maybe in 5 or 10 years' time. At the moment, we're about 200,000 plus in the grid-connected power, and we have about, I think, another 50,000 odd in the captive power, which with particular consumers. Out of this 200,000 megawatts, we have about 30,000 is new renewables, what we call wind and solar.
Yes.
And we've come across with two very, I should say, significant schemes under the National Action Plan for Climate Change. One is the National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency, which I had the privilege of putting in place before I superannuated from the government. And this tends to identify the major energy consumers in the country, what we call designated consumers under the Energy Conservation Act, and set targets for them to reduce their energy emissions. And if they are to reduce them beyond what the target is set for them, they can trade in energy certificates, and those who do not reach these limits should buy those certificates. So you create a market.
Absolutely.
And you generally move in a direction of lowering the energy intensity.
Yes.
We're very conscious of that. The other major mission is the National Solar Mission, in which I think we made very substantial progress, both in terms of the quantity of solar power that is going to come on. Already a very large number of projects are under construction. And I think by 2017, maybe we have about 20,000 megawatts of solar power in place.
Wonderful.
And wind power also moving with it. See, and the encouraging thing is that we started off with a feed-in tariff of about 17 or 18 rupees a unit. And this is now promising to come down to about 7 rupees a unit.
So the market is really working.
Yes, the market is working.
Well, that's an encouraging note to end on. Thank you very much indeed, Razdan. Thank you.
Thank you.